Welcome to the Echo Ratings Eventing podcast and a Connolly's Red Mills special for you listeners, because we have got a very special Red Mills rider on the show. And actually, it is a rider who I don't think we've had on the Eventing podcast before. He is one of the most experienced Irish event riders of all time. Austin O'Connor, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nicole.
It is lovely to have you on the show, and we're looking forward to kind of picking your brains. Obviously, a very, very, very big couple of weeks coming up because the countdown to badminton is on. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of all the final last-minute bits of prep and everything that goes into getting to a 5-star to talk to us. I kind of wanted to start with family life, actually, with you, because I think it's one of those things, isn't it? It's such a massive part of a career at the top level, any elite sports person, and eventers are a kind of a whole different breed in so much as the family kind of come along for the ride as well. And Amy, your wife, is massively supportive. She's a very, very good jockey in her own right too. And your two boys are 3 and 5, I want to say now, Alfie and Wilf.
Yep, 3 and 5, going on 15 and 20.
I know the feeling well.
Yep. It's actually made life an awful lot better, more interesting, and it's helped my own competition career as well, having the distraction, having a fantastic wife by my side and having 2 wonderful young boys.
Has it given a different perspective? Because I think it's one of those things, isn't it? We get so caught up in life, and actually kids have a great way of grounding things.
Yeah, bottom line, good day, bad day, or an indifferent day, you come in and they don't know any different, and it's just a fantastic distraction. And yeah, it's a wonderful interest. As I say, anything that happens outside the door, you've got to park and focus on them.
And talk us through the setup, because actually it was a new setup for you guys last year.
Yeah, we were very lucky. We've gone into partnership with Catherine Heerling, Catherine and Alex Heerling here, and we managed to buy a property near Didcot in Oxford. All the Brook studs. It was semi-existing or semi-equestrian setup, but we've spent the last 12 months developing it, and it's all growing. We've got 60 acres, we've got 25, 30 horses here, adding bits the whole time, and suddenly it feels like home.
It's amazing, isn't it, how it kind of all comes together. What is the kind of the ratio? You've got, 25, 30 horses? Are they all competition horses, or is there a bit of breeding going on as well?
Yes, we're the predominantly competition horses, and we've got some great working pupils here as part of the team. And the breeding side of it is starting to develop also. That's going to be a big arm of the operation.
Work in progress. Amy is a brilliant producer of young horses and actually has had a good bit of success herself. It must be pretty handy having a rider of her caliber to be able to step in, Austin, when you need some help as well.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Amy as an individual is unbelievable. She's a full-time chiropractor, human and equine, 2 children, and me, which is probably the biggest child of them all. So yeah, she ultimately keeps the show on the road.
I was going to say probably literally keeps the show on the road. A chiropractor in equine and human nature in this sport is unbelievably advantageous.
Yeah, well, it's certainly very useful for a fellow that's getting a bit old like me anyway. She certainly keeps me on the road. But besides that, she's the backbone of the operation.
I'm sure there's plenty of your fellow competitors as well who get to an event and are carrying little aches and pains and niggles and their back goes or something else, and they think, oh God, I really need some help, and she gets the call.
She's certainly getting popular in the
I can imagine. I wanted to go back because, I mean, your sort of career in top level eventing has just been absolutely extraordinary. I think you went through the kind of the junior young rider teams for Ireland, and then you went to the Vigersmar family, actually, that you first started out with over here in England as a young rider?
That's correct. It's a few years back now. I was very very lucky to be introduced to the late Hendrik Wiegersma many moons ago, and he offered me a position, and I jumped at it and spent 4 years there. So they really got me, himself and his wife Pippa and Caroline Crichton, the late Caroline Crichton as well. They were the biggest influences in my early years, and that sort of kick-started my career or my dream.
What was that big influence? Because you came from a really horsey family, didn't you? So how did their influence kind of guide you in terms of making your own way in the world and kind of deciding what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, I came from a horsey family, and I was very privileged in certain ways, but it was a dealing yard, it was a business, so on. But coming to England was just a complete different ball game. I grew up knowing that the UK was the mecca of eventing. I suppose until this opportunity of going to the Wiegersmas came along, I'd never imagined that I was going to be in a position to spend the rest of my career in the UK. But yeah, I came as a working pupil. I would like to think worked quite hard, spent 4 years there, and they were supportive thereafter.
And from there, you sort of finished up in Young Riders. It wasn't actually long before you got your first senior call-up, which I think I'm right in saying was the Sydney Olympics in the year 2000. I think you were 26 in Sydney. Talk to me about that, because actually an Olympics is something that you always aspire to throughout, a career. It's very much a life goal. You speak to lots of different people at the top level sport and kind of eventing, and the Olympics is that one that is a real common theme. 26 is quite young to tick that off. How was that experience? Did you realise how big it was at the time?
I think looking back, I had no idea. I set up my own yard in '99. Everything happened almost too quick in a way. No, too quick. I was extremely lucky how things did happen, but I set up on the 1st of January 1999, and I went to badminton, having never been to badminton before, and ended up fourth on a mare called Simply Rest. So that was my first badminton experience. Again, the day I set up on my own, I had a phone call from Tom McGuinness of Horseware Ireland, asking me or offering me to send me, or offering a horse to me if I'd have a horse to event for a while and see what it was like. And that horse ended up being a horse called Horseware Fabio, who a year and a half later is the horse I took to Sydney. So yeah, it all happened very, very quick.
Looking back now, what would you tell 26-year-old Austin that went to the Olympics?
Sure, I wouldn't change anything, bar I think not as I say, everything happened. I was starting off a new business, back was against the wall, so on, and yet there I was off to the Olympics. I guess I wish I was just a bit more prepared to take it all in. We were in Sydney. We were there for 6 weeks for various reasons, but it was all just a bit of a whirlwind. Great experience, but I've certainly enjoyed my latest two Olympics a lot more, or appreciated my latest Olympics a lot more.
I was going to say, it's almost that enjoyment factor, isn't it? You kind of, the permission to enjoy it and to kind of understand actually that kind of how special those moments are, and kind of looking back on it, 23 years later, the kind of the hard times along the way, and actually how tough it can be to make the Olympics and make the dreams happen. What have your other two Olympics experiences been like? So you were in Hong Kong in 2008, Tokyo 2021. They feel like three very, very different Olympic Games experiences.
Yeah, I mean, they were very different. Again, Sydney was what you would call a proper Olympics, bar London. It was probably the most successful Olympics in history. And then we ended up going to Beijing, the Beijing Olympics. But of course, that was held in Hong Kong, so it was purely an equestrian competition. Again, it was wonderful. It was a great honour to be there and to go do pretty well. But it wasn't. You didn't get the real Olympic feeling. Tokyo, again, was completely different because it was obviously behind closed doors, shut shop. So, yeah, they were all very, very different.
I think the Tokyo one is one that actually, looking back on now, we kind of appreciate, one, the fact that it even went ahead, and two, just how extraordinarily different it was being behind closed doors and kind of the whole uncertainty and everything around it. The team formats and changes obviously meant team of three, travelling reserve. You were the travelling reserve. The emotional roller coaster, I imagine, that went with that was enormous. Looking back, how does it feel, kind of knowing how it all played out, then having such a successful games?
Yeah, I think roller coaster is quite appropriate. It was a mess, and it was a mess. But the good thing is, as opposed to 23 years ago, I think I was mature. If this happened to me 23 years ago, I think it would have probably broken me. But with probably having family, and just that maturity, I managed the situation. I held on in there. I didn't particularly enjoy it. And I didn't enjoy coming in, replacing Cathal Daniels at the last minute. That wasn't, there was no great pleasure taken from that. But the bottom line is I think I had the maturity to deal with the situation, hold my head and run.
And what about Colorado Blue? Because he's been the horse in sort of the last couple of years that you've perhaps been most well known for. Tell us a little bit about him.
Actually, he's an extraordinary horse. He was bred by my long-term supporter, Kate Jarvie, of Attington Stud, where we were previously based. She bred him actually from a mare that was purchased from Hendrik and Pippa Wiegersma 20 odd years ago. So it's done a full circle. Rock Me Baby, which was by Rock King.
Yeah.
And the policy, the breeding program policy at the time was we retained the mares and sold the geldings, which is quite understandable. But obviously I had a soft spot for this guy as a 3 and 4 year old. So when it came to the selling situation, I was lucky enough to set up a syndicate, the Salty Syndicate, who purchased him as a 5-year-old, and he's been with me ever since.
That's really cool, because it almost does feel like the sort of full circle, like the Wiegersma connection. Kate's obviously been a big supporter of you over the years, that actually all of those things kind of fitted into place.
It's massive. And I can be really honest with you, which is quite funny now. We actually sold him to somebody else as a 4-stroke 5-year-old, and he was sent back to us as a very badly behaved young horse after 6 or 8 weeks. So to be totally honest, I sold him outside the yard, and we were gutted, and the opportunity came of having, with no choice, he came back, and he's been there ever since.
Did you always, when he came back to you, was it always the plan that you were going to keep him and he was going to go all the way? Did he ever give you that feeling that he was a top level horse at that time?
I don't believe you really know. He'd all the attributes to be a good horse, and then I think it developed. He was always a consistent horse. He always was good at his job. Whether I knew then he'd go to Olympic Games and World Championships and be fantastic around badminton, I don't think you really know.
What was the moment for you looking back? Was there a moment that you thought actually he will be a championship horse?
Yeah, the moment was the year he did Blenheim as a 9-year-old. He suddenly came into his own, and I suddenly thought I'm sat on something serious. He just developed, and he knew how to gallop, or he could gallop, and he just did everything very, very easy. And from that moment on, I knew I had something very exciting.
His gallop is something that I think he's probably become pretty well known for, in so much as his speed cross country and your speed cross country with him. I mean, he was inside the time at badminton last year when he was on his way to an 8th place finish. I think he just had a single time penalty in the show jumping, which was all he added to his dressage score all week. It's actually, you're only the fifth Irish rider, I should say, going back to 2008, to have gone inside the time at Badminton. It is not a straightforward thing to do, but he was brilliant in Protoni. He's perfectly capable of making the time in a short format 4-star as well. What is it about him that makes him so quick cross country?
I think ultimately he's rideable. He's rideable and he's blood. I think that's the bottom line. He's just full of quality. You know, he's 80% thoroughbred. He's got a good brain. You can go on a distance. You know, if it's a 6-ride distance, you can go on 4, or you can go on 10. And I think ultimately it's his rideability is his strongest asset.
That makes all the difference. Take us back to Badminton last year and going so brilliantly, because your first Badminton, a 4th place finish, and actually, it's one of those iconic eventing locations, isn't it, that everybody wants to do well at. Badminton is kind of the big one. What did it mean to have such a good result there last year with him?
Actually, it was fantastic, but the bottom line is I knew and I know that I'm sat on a Badminton horse, so if it, okay, you can be a bit unlucky, but it was more about me letting the horse down rather than him letting me down. He's your stereotypical Badminton Burley horse in my mind. Again, like for next week, things can go right, things can go wrong, but ultimately I wouldn't swap him for the world.
That's what you want to be sat on going into one of the biggest weeks of the year. How do you go inside the time cross-country Badminton? It is a tough old thing to do. It's quite an exclusive club. It's a very exclusive Irish club. What does it take to stop the clock inside the time?
I think ultimately, no matter who you are or how well you ride or whatever, ultimately it's what you're set on. I think you have to have, I say it again, I think you have to have your stereotypical Badminton proper 5-star galloping jumping machine. That's all I can put it down to. That you've got to be sat on the right tool.
The sport has changed massively over the last 25 years, probably changed massively over the last 5 or 10 years, and kind of that stereotypical like Badminton Burley horse that you mentioned. If Sam was on the show, he would be going down a total rabbit hole of blood percentages and everything else. But how has that changed in your mind? Has it altered the type of horse you look for? Have you sort of stayed true to that kind of 5-star Badminton Burley stamp that you refer to? What's your take on it all?
You see, I'm probably a bit old-fashioned. I don't 100% agree with all of this general conversation. Obviously, the stats are there and so on. But ultimately, a proper good horse is a proper good horse. And, you use Colorado Blue as an example. He galloped around the 4-star last week inside the time, which is completely different to Badminton. He's done it at Badminton. Tokyo was completely different. Protoni was completely different. So ultimately, a class horse is a class horse.
But do you think the type of horse that we see now in top level eventing has very much changed towards kind of the flashier movers, the more careful jumpers, and actually the dressage scores keep getting lower, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and unfortunately, you need a degree of that. But I mean, I guess it depends what your aims are. But it's a bit like racehorse ownership. Riders and certain owners, I think, lack a bit of patience and quite frankly, lack a bit of horsemanship. Everybody wants a quick, fast result now. Well, Colorado Blue is 14, and I think he's only starting to hit his prime. So trying to sell that to an owner or a young rider saying, okay, here's a 4-year-old, but you're going to have to wait 10 years until he starts hitting his prime, they're going to laugh at you and walk the other way. So I it's the way of the world, isn't it? But I think there's a lack of horsemanship, a lack of patience, and everybody wants everything now rather than going the distance.
it's a lot of life traits, isn't it? Everybody becomes quite accustomed to everything in life. It's like the old Amazon Prime, one swipe and it's here the next day. But actually, it's so intertwined in daily life that I guess it kind of becomes a lot more of a culture almost of things being the expectation of things happening more quickly than perhaps they might otherwise, or that they used to.
Yes, it's I say it's the way of the world, but maybe in various aspects of life and social media, etc. Maybe it'll do the full circle, and normality will return.
It probably will. It probably will. I went shopping with my mother-in-law yesterday and she was going, these clothes, they were all in style in my day. They've all come back full circle. So who knows?
Yeah.
What about the next couple of weeks? Obviously, badminton, the big one. By the time this show is released, it's probably going to be about Badminton Week. What are your hopes going into Badminton 2023?
Look, we're going to go and we're going to give it our best shot. I think I wouldn't want to be sat on any other horse. Yeah, I'm very confident. I think the horse is improving, which is, again, sounds a bit crazy. He's 14, so I'm going there. I want to give it a good go. Knock for sharp. Hopefully, can take a few marks off the dressage side of things, and at least be in with a shouting chance come the Sunday cross country day and go from there. But yeah, I'm mad excited.
What would kind of looking at it now, the course preview and everything has been released, Horse and Hound do their preview, everything else cross country app. Would you be a rider that likes to look at those sorts of things pre-event, or do you like to wait and see for yourself in person?
Oh, I just wait. Yeah, no, no. Wait and see. What's the point in getting worked up? I've enough to be doing and enough to be thinking about. And quite frankly, if I see something on a video or on Facebook or whatever, I'm not going to exactly panic and go out and start doing something stupid in the next couple of days. I'm just going to get there, see what it is, and go from there.
And trust in the prep at home. I mean, you seem unbelievably relaxed and kind of laid back. Would you ever feel the tingle of nerves, or are you generally quite steady?
Oh, no, without a doubt. I mean, you guess, but at this stage, I've seen enough and I've had enough disappointments up to the last minute that I can only do my job and look after Colorado Blue the best we can and have him right on the day and go from there.
Well, certainly everything looks to be going very well. His prep run went very well. I saw him at Burnham Market and he was like a rocket cross country. Looked absolutely brilliant. One thing I wanted to ask you actually was about some of your young horses, because you seem to have a really nice team of young horses coming through, including, and I'm going to check, right, listeners, I'm doing some kind of admin live on air here, but is it Izaza?
Yes.
Oh my God, I got it right. Amazing.
You did? Yeah, that sounds good Dutch to me anyway.
Excellent. Well, perfect. If you say it's right, then it's good enough for me. But she has really stepped up to the 4-star level this spring. She was really, really impressive at Thorsby. But she had some very solid results at the 3-star level last year and over the last couple of years as well. Tell us a little bit about her. Yeah,
she's a lovely mare. She's owned by a fantastic owner of ours, Leslie Rose. And ultimately she's, Leslie is of the same mindset as us. She's patient, she's not in a rush, and we've been able to give the mare loads and loads of time. She's Dutch bred. She actually came from the Woodheads in Yorkshire as a 4-year-old. She's by Zaval. But as you say, yeah, she's stepping up to the plate. She's a beautiful mare, she's a beautiful jumper. And but again, we'll take every day at a time, but she's doing everything that's been asked of her at the moment.
And one of the questions that our listeners always love is Izaza is the one that's kind of flagged up on my radar, probably at the higher levels. But we love a young gun. We love a horse that is perhaps only just starting out in their career, or one that, maybe is quietly competing up the levels, but we haven't heard of. Can you give us and our eventing podcast listeners one to follow?
I could give you, at the moment, half a dozen to follow. I just wish.
You're can give us half a dozen, to be fair. We're very loose on the rules.
No, I guess the most interesting one is a mare called Ventura Rock, who is just stepping up to 3-star level, and she's a half sister of Colorado Blue.
Okay.
And she's by a horse called Newmarket Venture. Again, she's owned by Kate Jarvie, bred and owned by Kate, obviously being the mare's retained. And she's starting to look, I think she's the real deal. But again, no, time.
And she would be out of the same mare as Colorado Blue?
That's correct. She's out of Rock Me Baby. So, yeah, out of the same mare.
Oh, cool. And what will be the plan with her? 3-star step up this year?
Yeah, the plan will be she'll do go to Mill Street for the 3-star long. And a bit like him, there's no hurry. She's an 8-year-old. So she'll play around the 3-star level and hopefully it'll keep going in the right direction.
Watch this space. And we've obviously got an Olympics coming up next year. Paris feels like it's like the shortest Olympic cycle ever. Well, I mean, it is the shortest Olympic cycle ever, but it feels like we blinked, Tokyo disappeared, and all of a sudden Paris is nearly upon us. You have been to 3 Olympic Games. The 5 stars are obviously something that you absolutely love. What is it for you now at this stage in your career that really, really does make you tick? Are you looking for that next Olympic ticket? Is that the driving force?
Absolutely. I'd love to make it 4, but I think and this started quite a few years ago. I don't want to just go for the badge now. I want to go and make it count. I want to be competitive, and I don't want to just go to an Olympic Games to say I've been to 4 Olympic Games. I want to go. I want to be competitive and give it a shot. Otherwise, stay at home and watch it on TV.
Would you be a good spectator?
No.
No.
I'd have to have an interest. Coaching is obviously taking off in quite a big way, so I'd have to be involved or have an interest. Otherwise, no, just spectating isn't my thing.
I would be a terrible spectator. I'm a terrible backseat commentator, and I get a bit too involved. Is coaching something that you might sort of do more of in the future? Obviously, you've got the working pupils, and it's something that you do already. But having had such a grounding from the Vegas Mars, is that something that actually is very much in your mind?
It's become quite a big part of our life now, the coaching side of it, and it's getting the balance, because obviously I still feel I'm enjoying the competing and I've got some lovely horses and things, but it's the coaching side of it is certainly a big thing at the moment, and it's a natural progression, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's one of those things, though. Not every great rider makes a great coach. Not every great coach makes a great rider always. It definitely is kind of a something that you can build on and learn more about. I was also just going to ask you before we wrap this show up, listeners, because obviously we need to kind of start thinking about badminton in a little bit more detail, but your partnership with Connolly's Red Mills, because we've spoken to lots of different Red Mills riders over the years. What is it for you that makes your partnership with them work so well?
I love being involved with the best. I don't want to be involved or be in partnership or have a relationship or take advice from Joe Blogs. Red Mills is established. They're amazingly good to me. Feeding is simplified. I would like to think our horses are always in good order. If there's a problem, they're at the end of the phone. Obviously, they're Irish. They're the number 1 feed company in Ireland. So to me, it's just an honour to be involved with a company like Red Mills.
That speaks volumes. And I think actually when we talk to Red Mills riders, that is absolutely a line that comes through. Of the 5 riders actually that have gone inside the time at badminton since 2008, listeners, 3 of them are Red Mills riders. One of them's done it twice. Sam does not pay me £5 every time I drop that into a podcast somewhere, but he has. Austin, thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. We're very much looking forward to badminton and keeping everything crossed for you.
Amazing. Thank you, Nicole.
Our absolute pleasure. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed a little bit of an insight into Austin's setup and what we have got coming up over the next few weeks. A big thank you to him, and a big thank you to you guys for tuning in as always. Connolly's Red Mills, massive supporters of the show, very much appreciated. And we've got a few very exciting shows up our sleeves, so do stay tuned. But for now, thank you very much for listening.